Don't you literally just, oh, okay.
I like don't know where that recording is gonna end up, but cute.
Okay, hi guys. Today we're going to talk about set painting and composition and what it means to immerse your audience into the setting of a show. So first we're going to look at composition and break down the different elements that are in a composition. So when we're looking at like a picture, so this is one point perspective, and what that means is that there's one vanishing point. You can see like here they're labeled VP, and then the horizon line is HL. So before you even start painting anything, you need to figure out where that is so that your painting is realistic. So you can see that if you put the VP at different heights here, or like different left and right, it like changes the field of vision. So you need to know like, what do you want your audience to look at? When we're painting for theater, especially theater backdrops, you generally want the vanishing point to be at the center, and you want to make sure the horizon line isn't too low so that the audience can still see what's going on your backdrop or whatever it is that you're painting. So like once you choose a, once you choose a vanishing point, so like if I were doing this a backdrop and then I would choose a pretty, like I would choose a horizon line in the upper half, and then this is my vanishing point. So then all your lines of all the buildings would radiate from that point. So all the like horizontal lines of buildings come from that point. And then once you draw all those lines, then you can fill in the vertical lines, and the vertical lines would be parallel with the edges of the canvas. And that's how you make it look like they're actually there, which is pretty cool. And then the next type of perspective that we're gonna look at is 2-point perspective. Generally, you want your vanishing points to be off the canvas. And again, we want them to be even if we're doing theater. So this kind of evokes the same kind of atmosphere as theater flats. So you can use 2-point perspective in combination with theater flats to make it, to make your entire setting be cohesive. So 2-point perspective, you can choose a place where these 2 points intersect, and same concept with the one vanishing point. You just want all the lines to radiate from this point, because that's how 3D works. And then from there, you draw the rest of your details so everything is organized and you can, yeah, basically it looks like your audience is actually there instead of just drawing random abstract rectangles. Yeah, so we're going for realism, we're going for immersion. Yeah, so that's 2-point perspective. And you can, so this slide talks about if you put the horizon line at different levels, how that changes what the audience is looking at. So if you put the horizon level high, then it looks like your audience is standing right there, like over the scene. And if the horizon level is like mid, like at midpoint, your like eye level is at the scene. So, and then a low horizon line is like if you're sitting at the scene, or like your ant's view perspective. So these are all things to take into consideration before you even start painting, like before you start drawing the guidelines. You want to know, what do you want your audience to see and why? So generally, like in scenic painting, you're doing like large trees, like, or the inside of a house. And so you would generally choose a pretty high horizon line and like even vanishing points. So the last kind of perspective we're going to talk about today is 3-point perspectives. These are really good for cityscapes. So you can see that the vanishing point, the third vanishing point here, is really far off the canvas. And that also helps with the viewer's eyes, their brain will automatically assume like, oh, there's like so much more to this this canvas that I'm seeing, and like their brain will like fill in the image, like, oh, there's more to this world that I'm in right now. And it makes like your buildings look like they're taller than the canvas that you can see. So the two vanishing points are on the horizon line, and then there's a third one. The third vanishing point can either be below the canvas or above. And yes, we want that vanishing point to be further away from the canvas. Okay, so now that we've talked about composition and how to make 3D things look properly 3D, we're going to talk about like the order in which we're going to paint things. So I'm just going to choose like a random scene. Let's do UCLA from memory during the day, and like the view from, what are they, they're called Tongva steps now? They're not called Jan steps, that's racist, I'm sorry. So yeah, so first you're gonna lay out the horizon line, right? So this is a horizon line, and then, so this is like the field, the stadium's like here, and then like if you're looking down at the steps, so the steps have a vanishing point here, and then the hill kind of goes down, and then you see the pavilion. What is this called? I don't know. Okay, so we're drawing the guidelines down. So once those guidelines are generally down, then you want to fill in what are called flats. So flats, it's what they sound like. They're just flat washes of color. So we're going to do neutral colors. So when you're painting for set design, because you also have a lighting designer and costumes and all of this to work with, you don't want to paint this set with anything too spicy so that the lighting designer has more things to work with. You want it to be neutral, like it could be any time of day, like either like straight like nighttime or straight daytime, and then the lighting designer can further evoke mood based on what's there. So I'm just gonna put a nice neutral color for the steps. In my mind, these are what the steps look like. I don't know, I'm not there right now, so. And then the pavilion's also approximately the same color. There's like a little thingy there. And then, oh, also if you're painting like in real life, you would start with like the background first, then go to the front, which I should have done, but yeah, so like if it's daytime, then we would do the sky first and give that a nice like blue. And then on top of that, we would do like the dark trees. So at this stage, it doesn't matter too much like any of the details, because they can be fixed. You just want to get the big shapes down. That's what's important. I feel like Bob Ross right now, actually. So like these big shapes. And because you're painting for set design, like you actually can't worry about the details. It needs to look good from like 50, 100 feet away. So if you make the small things look good, you literally worked for nothing. So please don't do that. So we have to get the big things down. I think there's grass here. I don't really remember. Okay. So this is like UCLA from memory. It doesn't really look at it like it, but whatever. So after you get the flats down, the second step is to draw in like the 3D details. And then, so what that would look like is, so generally you don't want to outline the shapes. You just want to fill in where the shadows are and where the highlights are. So that brings us into color theory. And we need to talk about how do you pick colors for the shadows and how do you pick colors for the highlights. First rule, this is really easy. Do not do the shadow with black. Always mix the black with something, or choose a non-black color in general. And we'll get into why. So here is a little example of like how you can shade different colors with non-black colors. You see in this red, the darker colors actually done with purple, and then the lighter colors actually done with orange. And this gives more dimension and more depth and adds more interest to the color and makes them look more real. So you want, basically if you look at the color picker here, you want something that is like within the range of where the color is. So like if we're looking at my color for the steps, I would choose a shadow color that's maybe like redder, and then a little bit of black in it, and I would use this color and then I would shade with that. So I'm just putting in the steps right now very roughly. If I were using a brush right now, I would add a lot of water to the paint so that we can get clean lines. So that's like kind of what I would do, like just get the shadows in there and then maybe like outline some bricks like that. And then I would do the first pass, hold on, of the highlight color. So as you see, like when we get further away in the picture, like you put less detail because like the eye can't see as much. So like the steps in the foreground are going to have more detail than this is not poly pavilion. I don't know what this is called. The helicopter landing thing. That's what they say to you when you're at freshman orientation. So this thingy is going to have less detail. So for that, if I was using a brush, I would use a drier brush and like be lighter to the touch and have like broader strokes, like bigger, broader strokes. Yeah. And then we're going to choose a lighter color. So our highlight color will probably be somewhere more yellow. Generally, if your main color is like a warm color, then a sort of like yellow will be a good like highlight color. So we're gonna choose this like yellow like this. Also, you have to think about where the sun is. So I'm going to pretend that the sun is like behind, yeah, like here-ish, like in like right at the top. So like we would put the highlights like towards the middle. And then when I'm doing highlights, it's kind of how you would do highlights in makeup. Like you just want to like a little bit and then like a very bright spot in the center, and that'll help make it look real. And then usually after I do the highlight, then I go in and find an even darker color to like add more depth. So I'm gonna do a like reddish brown, and then just like add like small details, like smaller strokes, and to further add dimension. So for like things like buildings and square, like geometric shapes, what's important when you're painting them is to get these like lines and these the perspective right. And if you can get those right, you can like screw up other stuff and it'll be fine. So yeah, like I said, it has to look good from 50 feet away. And if I painted this, like I would probably just leave it like this. The next step would be to add texturing. Some different techniques are like crumpling up a piece of paper and then just like dabbing that in paint and then just like sponging that on the canvas, or just like using a dry brush, like very little paint and then like lightly sweep so that you get the like grainy texture. So after I do all this detailing, I would use one of those techniques and just get texture like all over like these large spots. So we never want there to be like a really like flat expanse of one color. Because not only is that distracting, it's also boring, and we don't want the audience to look at that. It's also unrealistic for there to just be like a big spot of one color. Yeah. So when painting more like nature-y things, there's like more wiggle room. In terms of like, you don't have to do the details that accurately. Sometimes if you just like you can kind of like, yeah, like it can be more vague, the things that you do with your brush. So I would just like kind of mark out where the big like chunks of bushes are, or like grass, and then go from there. And if I were painting with like actual paint, I would definitely use a larger brush here. With leaves, like honestly, you never really need to like paint out the actual leaves. So again, here we're gonna choose like a more yellow color for the highlight. And these are happy little trees. And as I was saying earlier, like the details get more vague as you go further into the background. So like for this like whole back part, I'm like honestly not gonna do much. We just want a little like color variety. So like that's probably as much as I'm gonna do. And then another step, so like as I'm evaluating this picture right now, it's hard to tell the foreground from the midground from the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a big brush, very light strokes, very like watery paint, and then I'm going to choose like a neutral color, like a dark neutral color, and then very like low opacity, and then I'm just going to like go over this whole middle part and like darken it so it like recedes into the background. And then after I darken it, I would go back in and then add details again, just so like things don't get lost. Yeah. So just like add a little bit of detail, but not too much. So we want it to look a little bit vaguer, more vague. So yeah, we want to be able to tell the foreground from the midground from the background. Another thing that I'm seeing about this is that like there's like not enough like overlapping shapes in the foreground. So what I would want to do is like add, say, like a tree in the front, just to like add more interesting parts to this like composition. So like I would put like a tree like here and like have that go across the canvas. So having more overlapping shapes makes the composition seem more real, because like that's how real life is. Like things overlap, and yeah. So I'd probably do something like that, and then once again go in with a darker color. Oh, and with like doing wood textures, it's really important to vary how hard you're pressing down the brush. So for like the darker parts, we would use a more wet brush and a smaller brush, and to like get those like shapes down, like the silhouette is very important to have a clear silhouette. And then I would take like a lighter brush, or like a bigger brush, and then less paint, and then a lighter hand, and then to do the like detailings like that, like the texture. And so like a lot of short, gentle brush strokes for that. Yeah, that's pretty much what I would do for something like this. Oh, I also might, like, if I felt like it, or if the script called for something like this, I would like maybe do some clouds. But also, yeah, just like very vague suggestions of clouds. Yeah, so that's like the composition breakdown of, yeah. So what I kind of missed some steps there. So second step is to do the 3D details in dark. Sorry, my handwriting is bad. Dark color, and then you would go in and with the light color. And then last, you would like reevaluate your piece, and then rinse and repeat. Yeah, that's like what I had for that. I mean, I could keep painting and talking, but that is generally my pro tips, very vaguely.
I love you, Tracy.
Okay.
It's up to you whether you want to keep painting, or if you want to stop. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm just doodling now, but it's so weird, like trying to explain real life painting while doing digital painting.
Yeah, yeah, especially like painting on such a big canvas versus like your little one
Yeah.
that you have here.
Yeah, so I tried to explain stuff of like how you would do this like large scale.
I thought it made sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.